Director Sarah Chun stood before the Galactic Council for the 47th time in 10 years. The chamber stretched above her like a cathedral, filled with representatives from 200 species. Most weren't paying attention. The Korthax ambassador was checking his datapad. The Velshara delegation whispered among themselves. The trading clan representatives had their eyes closed, probably calculating profit margins. Sarah had prepared her speech carefully. She had documents, evidence, testimony from survivors. She had everything needed to prove that humanity deserved protection under galactic law. Everything except the Council's willingness to listen. "Honored members," she began, her voice steady despite the exhaustion she felt. "I come before you once again to request intervention. 3 months ago, Korthax raiders attacked our colony on Proxima 7. They took 43 civilians. We still don't know where they are. 2 months ago, Velshara tax collectors seized our mining operation on Europa Station, claiming we owed fees we'd already paid twice. Last month, the trading clans demanded protection money from our supply ships, then attacked them anyway when we paid." The Korthax ambassador, General Thrak, looked up from his pad. His 4 eyes gleamed with something that might have been amusement. "Ambassador Chun, perhaps if your species spent less time complaining and more time defending yourselves, you wouldn't need to waste our time with these meetings." Scattered laughter rippled through the chamber. Sarah's hands tightened on the podium, but her expression remained calm. She'd heard worse, much worse. "We are not asking for special treatment," she continued. "We are asking for the same protections guaranteed to every council member. The same laws that prevent aggression between. Laws are for species strong enough to enforce them." Thrak interrupted. His translator made his voice sound almost bored. "Your kind has been whining at our feet for a decade. Perhaps the galaxy would be better served if natural selection took its course." More laughter. Sarah noticed that some species didn't join in. The elderly Salkid in the back remained silent, watching her with their compound eyes. A few smaller species looked uncomfortable, but most of the council either laughed or ignored the exchange entirely. Sarah took a breath. She'd been a diplomat for 30 years. She'd negotiated trade agreements, resolved disputes, built bridges between cultures that had nothing in common. She knew how to stay calm. She knew how to smile through insults and find common ground with those who hated her. But then her datapad chimed. An urgent message, Priority Alpha. She glanced down and felt the world tilt beneath her feet. The words were simple. Kepler Station destroyed. No survivors. Korthax responsible. 12,000 people. Her daughter had been stationed there, studying xenobiology. Her daughter, who'd wanted to understand alien species better so she could help build peace between the stars. Sarah looked up from the pad. Her face must have shown something because the laughter died down. The chamber grew quiet, waiting. "I've just received news," she said softly. "The Kepler station has been destroyed. 12,000 civilians are dead. The attack was carried out by Korthax forces." The silence stretched. Then General Thrak leaned back in his seat. Kepler Station was conducting weapons research. It was a legitimate military target. It was a civilian research facility, Sarah said. Her voice hadn't changed, but something in her tone made several species lean forward. It had no defenses, no weapons, just scientists, families, children. "Do you have proof it wasn't military?" Thrak asked. "Because we have intelligence suggesting otherwise." "You have lies," Sarah said flatly, "and you know it. Everyone in this chamber knows it. Kepler Station's research was public. We published our findings quarterly. There were no weapons, no military, just people trying to learn about the universe." The head of the council, Chairman Veltok of the Velshara, finally spoke. His voice was dry, administrative. "Ambassador Chen, do you have evidence that contradicts the Korthax intelligence?" Sarah stared at him. She'd worked with Veltok for years. He knew the truth. They all did. But he was asking for evidence, as if this were just another bureaucratic process. As if 12,000 deaths were just another form to fill out. "I have the station's complete records," she said. "I have the research data. I have testimony from neighboring stations that monitored Kepler's activities. I have everything you need to prove this was mass murder." "Then submit it through proper channels," Veltok said. "We will review it and issue a finding in due time." "Due time?" Sarah's voice cracked for the first time. "How long is due time? How many more of my people need to die while you review evidence?" "Ambassador Chen," Veltok said, and now his tone carried a warning. "Control yourself. This council operates on established procedures. We cannot rush to judgment simply because you're emotional about, 'My daughter was on that station.'" The words fell into the chamber like stones into still water. Sarah hadn't meant to say it. Personal feelings had no place in diplomacy. But the words came out anyway, raw and honest. "I'm sorry for your loss," Veltok said, though his tone suggested he wasn't. "But personal tragedy does not override council procedure. Submit your evidence. We will review it. That is all we can offer." Sarah looked around the chamber. She saw boredom, contempt, indifference. A few species showed sympathy, but none would speak up. None would challenge the Korthax or the Velshara or the trading clans. They were too powerful, too important to the galactic economy. She thought about making another speech. She thought about pleading, begging, demanding justice. She'd been doing it for 10 years. Every time humanity was attacked, she came here. Every time they were cheated, exploited, or murdered, she asked for help. And every time, the answer was the same. Submit your evidence. Follow procedures. Accept that you're too weak to matter. Sarah closed her datapad. She looked at General Thrak, at Chairman Veltok, at all the species who'd watched her people suffer and done nothing. "Humanity will not be asking again," she said quietly. The chamber erupted in chatter. Thrak laughed. "Finally showing some spine?" "It's too late for that, Ambassador." But Sarah wasn't listening anymore. She turned and walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. Behind her, the council returned to their regular business, already forgetting about the human problem. Sarah reached her ship and sent a single encrypted message back to Earth. 3 words: "Release the protocols." The response came within minutes. The vote had been unanimous. Every nation, every colony, every human settlement across the stars had agreed. They were done asking for peace. Now they would take it. 3 months passed. The galaxy continued as it always had. The Korthax raided weak colonies. The Velshara collected their taxes and fees. The trading clans demanded payment for protection they never provided. It was business as usual. General Thrak barely remembered the human ambassador who'd walked out of the council chambers. He'd seen dozens of species rise and fall. Humanity would be no different. They were soft, weak, too focused on talking instead of fighting. Give them another year, and they'd probably be extinct. The strong survived. The weak didn't. That was the way of the universe. He was reviewing reports when his communications officer rushed into his command center. The young Korthax looked frightened, which was unusual. Korthax warriors were bred for courage. "General, we've lost contact with Patrol Fleet 7, the officer said. Thrak didn't look up from his reports. "Equipment malfunction. Have them run diagnostics." "Sir, we sent that order an hour ago." "No response." "We sent a recovery team. They found debris." Now Thrak looked up. "What kind of debris?" "All of it, sir. 12 ships. Completely destroyed. The debris field it's not normal. The cuts are too clean, too precise. Whatever hit them didn't just destroy them. It took them apart." Thrak stood. Patrol Fleet 7 had been near New Sarajevo, one of the human colonies. What were they doing when they were destroyed? The communications officer hesitated. They were conducting a raid on the colony, sir. Standard operations. And the colony? Still there, silent. They're not responding to any hails. Thrak felt something unfamiliar in his chest. Not fear, not exactly, but something close to it. Send a full battle group. Find out what happened. The battle group never reported back either. Across the galaxy, similar reports started coming in. A Velshara tax collection team sent to a human mining station disappeared. A trading clan convoy attempting to extract protection fees from human. Freighters was found drifting in space, crews dead, cargo untouched. The attacks were surgical, efficient. Nothing was stolen. No messages were sent. Ships just stopped existing, or their crews just stopped living. And always, it happened near human territory. The council convened an emergency session. For the first time in years, everyone was paying attention. The humans are attacking us, General Thrak declared. This is an act of war. Chairman Veltok looked concerned. Do we have proof? The humans haven't claimed responsibility. They haven't even communicated with us since Ambassador Chun left. What more proof do you need? Thrak gestured at the holographic display showing dozens of missing ships and dead crews. They're killing our people. An elderly Salket named Scholar Rixta raised one of her many limbs. Her voice was soft, thoughtful. I have been reviewing historical records. Has anyone else examined humanity's past? We don't have time for history lessons, Thrak snapped. Perhaps you should make time, Rixta replied. I have accessed their databases. Humanity has existed as a spacefaring species for 300 years. They have been members of this council for 200 years. Before that, they were confined to their home system. So? Thrak said. They're young, inexperienced. That's why they're weak. That is what I assumed, Rixta continued. But their civilization is much older than 300 years. They have records going back 10,000 years. Written records? Before that, archaeological evidence suggests they've existed for 200,000 years. Many species are old, Veltok said. Age doesn't equal strength. No, Rixta agreed. But consider this. Humanity's diplomatic period, their time of peace and negotiation, represents exactly 200 years. The other 9,800 years of recorded history is almost entirely warfare. The chamber fell silent. Rixta continued, her voice growing quieter. They didn't fight occasional wars. They fought constantly. They had a war that killed 60 million. Another that killed 80 million. They built weapons that could destroy their entire planet. They used them, twice, on themselves. Then they're savages, Thrak said, but his voice lacked conviction. No, Rixta said. They were savages. Past tense. They stopped. 200 years ago, after their last global war, they decided to change. They built a society focused on peace. They joined the galactic community, hoping to leave their violent past behind. They asked us to help them be better than they were. Rixta pulled up images on the display. Battlefields, destroyed cities. Weapons of impossible destructive power. They've been trying to be what we told them civilized species should be. But we rejected them. We exploited them. We killed their people and laughed about it. What are you suggesting? Veltok asked. I'm suggesting, Rixta said carefully, that we made a terrible mistake. Humanity wasn't asking for peace because they were weak. They were asking because they remembered what they were capable of. And now they've stopped asking. Thrak slammed his fist on his console. I don't care about their history. If they want war, we'll give them war. The Korthax Empire has conquered 100 worlds. We'll crush them like we've crushed everyone else. Have you reviewed the attack patterns? Rixta asked. Your ships aren't just destroyed. They're dissected. Every weakness exploited. Every system targeted with perfect precision. Whatever is killing your warriors knows exactly how to kill them efficiently. How long have you been studying human tactics? We don't need to study humans, Thrak growled. We just need to hit them harder. That's what species have said about humans for their entire history, Rixta replied. None of them exist anymore. Not because humans destroyed them, but because humans outlasted them. They call themselves persistence predators. On their world, they didn't chase prey. They followed it. For days, for weeks, until it collapsed from exhaustion. Then they moved in. The trading clan representative, a creature named Zix, spoke up. His voice was nervous. What do? We can't just let them attack us. We tried ignoring them, Rixta said. We tried exploiting them. We tried killing them. None of it worked. Perhaps we should try the one thing we haven't tried. Listening. Listening to what? Veltok asked. They're not talking. Exactly, Rixta said. That should terrify you. Humanity spent 200 years talking. Now they've gone silent. What do you think that means? No one answered. The chamber remained quiet, each species considering the implications. Finally, Veltok spoke. Send a message to Earth. Request a meeting with their leadership. Tell them we wish to discuss the recent incidents. And if they refuse? Zix asked. Then we prepare for war, Thrak said. And we hit them with everything we have. Rixta looked at the Korthax general with something like pity. You still don't understand. This isn't the beginning of a war. We're already in one. We've been in one since the day Ambassador Chun walked out of this chamber. We just didn't know it yet. The message was sent to Earth. The response came back within hours. It was brief, only 3 words. We're coming home. No one understood what it meant. Not then, but across human space, something was moving. Ships that had seemed like civilian transports were shedding their outer hulls, revealing weapons underneath. Colonies that had appeared abandoned were activating defense systems that had been hidden for decades. Military bases that humanity had claimed were museums were coming online. And in the darkness between stars, something was hunting. It moved silently, efficiently, learning with each encounter. It studied its prey, identified weaknesses, and struck without mercy or hesitation. Humanity had spent 200 years trying to be peaceful. They built their society around diplomacy, cooperation, and restraint. They'd locked away their weapons and their instincts, determined to be worthy of the galactic community. But the galaxy had rejected them. So now humanity was coming home. Not to Earth, but to themselves. To what they'd always been, what millions of years of evolution had designed them to be. They were predators. And they'd just remembered how to hunt. General Thrak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Conqueror's Will, watching the largest fleet the Korthax Empire had assembled in 2 centuries. 200 warships stretched out before him in perfect formation. Each one carried enough firepower to level a continent. Together, they could crack a planet's crust. We'll show these humans what real power looks like, Thrak said to his officers. They think they can challenge the Korthax? We've been conquering worlds since before their species learned to use fire. The fleet moved toward Sol System, humanity's home. It would take 2 weeks to cross the distance. Thrak planned to broadcast his approach, to let the humans know their doom was coming. Fear was as much a weapon as any gun, but the humans never received the message. The communication never reached them. On the 3rd day of travel, the fleet passed through the Outer Reach, a region of space filled with old asteroid fields and debris from ancient stellar collisions. Long-range sensors showed nothing unusual. The asteroids were just rocks. Dead and cold dot, then the rocks started moving. What Thrak had thought were asteroids weren't asteroids at all. They were weapons platforms, disguised and waiting. Some had been there for decades, powered down, invisible to sensors, patient. When the fleet entered range, they woke up. The first volley destroyed 20 ships before anyone realized they were under attack. Thrak watched in horror as precise beams of energy cut through shields like they weren't there, striking weak points in the hull with impossible accuracy. "Return fire!" he screamed. "Destroy those platforms." His fleet obeyed, unleashing enough firepower to vaporize a moon. The platforms exploded, turned to dust and metal fragments. But by then, more platforms had activated, these ones from different angles, creating a crossfire that his ships couldn't escape. Worse, things were coming out of the asteroid field. Small ships, barely larger than fighters, but they moved like nothing Thrak had ever seen. They didn't fly in straight lines or predictable patterns. They moved like animals, like predators stalking prey, using the debris for cover, striking from unexpected angles. One of the small ships attached itself to the Conqueror's will. Thrak felt the vibration through the deck as it cut through the outer hull. "Repel boarders!" He ordered. His warriors rushed to the breach point, weapons ready. Korthak soldiers were the finest in the galaxy, trained since birth for combat, augmented with the best technology their empire could provide. They stood ready, eager to face the enemy. The first human came through the breach moving fast, too fast for the Korthaks to track properly. It wore powered armor that made it stronger, faster, but it was the way it moved that disturbed Thrak. There was no hesitation, no fear. It moved like it had been born for this. The Korthaks opened fire. The human shields absorbed some hits. Its armor deflected others. Then it was among them, and Thrak watched his finest warriors fall. The human didn't just fight, it adapted. Every Korthak's tactic was countered within seconds. Every weapon was avoided or neutralized. More humans poured through the breach. They fought in coordinated groups, covering each other, never giving the Korthaks a chance to regroup. And they never stopped. When one fell, others filled the gap. They just kept coming, wave after wave, and they learned from every encounter. Thrak retreated to the command deck, sealing the doors behind him. He watched through internal cameras as his ship was taken deck by deck. It took 3 hours. 3 hours for his mighty flagship, crewed by 12,000 warriors, to fall to less than 50 humans. When they reached the command deck, they didn't break through immediately. They waited outside, patient. Thrak realized with growing horror that they weren't rushing because they didn't need to. They knew he had nowhere to go. They had all the time in the world. Finally, the door opened. A human walked in, removing its helmet. It was a woman, young with dark hair and cold eyes. She looked at Thrak with the expression of someone examining a specimen. "I'm Lieutenant Sarah Chung," she said. Her translator made her words clear. "Ambassador Chun was my mother." Thrak felt ice in his veins. "You're here for revenge." "No," Sarah said. "Revenge would mean I'm angry." "I'm not angry. I'm just doing my job. You declared war on humanity when you killed 12,000 civilians. This is what war with humans looks like." "We had hundreds of ships," Thrak said. "Where are they?" "Destroyed or captured. Some of your crew surrendered. We let them live. The ones who fought to the end died. You get the same choice. Surrender and you'll be taken prisoner. Fight and you die here." Thrak looked at his officers. They were warriors, bred for battle, trained never to surrender. But they were also looking at the humans who'd fought through an entire ship and didn't even look tired. The Korthaks had been confident in their superiority. That confidence was gone now. "I surrender," Thrak said, and hated himself for it. But he wasn't stupid. He'd seen what humans could do. Fighting would just mean dying pointlessly. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Velshara economic blockades found themselves cut off instead, their trade routes seized by human ships that appeared from nowhere. The bureaucrats who'd frozen human assets discovered their own accounts empty, their corporations crumbling as human agents executed decades of prepared sabotage. The trading clans tried to negotiate. They sent representatives to the nearest human colony, offering deals, compromises, anything to stop the attacks. The human response was simple: you had your chance. But humanity didn't just destroy. That was what surprised the galaxy most. Species that hadn't participated in exploiting humans found themselves protected. Human ships began patrolling trade routes, keeping them safe from pirates and raiders. Colonies that had been terrorized by the Korthax or the Velshara suddenly had human defenders. Small species that had been ignored by the Council received messages from Earth. Simple messages. Do you need help? We're listening. The humans didn't conquer territory. They didn't demand tribute or servitude. They just eliminated threats and protected the vulnerable. It was methodical, efficient, and utterly relentless thought in 6 months. The galactic power structure that had existed for millennia simply collapsed. The Korthax Empire's military was reduced to a fraction of its former strength, its warriors either dead or captured. The Velshara collective fragmented as member species realized humans offered them better terms than the bureaucrats ever had. The trading clans dissolved entirely, their assets seized and redistributed. And through it all, humanity kept moving forward. They didn't celebrate victories. They didn't gloat or make demands. They just did what needed to be done with the cold efficiency of a species that had been at war with itself for 10,000 years. Before learning to work together, the Galactic Council called an emergency session. They needed to understand what was happening. They needed to find some way to negotiate, to restore order, to return to the way things were. Sarah Chun, now wearing an admiral's uniform instead of a lieutenant's, walked into the chamber. She stood where her mother had stood, looking at the same faces that had dismissed humanity's pleas for peace. "You wanted to see us," she said. "Here we are." Chairman Veltok, looking older and more tired than before, leaned forward. "Admiral Chun, what does humanity want? What are your terms for peace?" Sarah smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Peace? We're not here to negotiate peace. We're here to enforce it." The council chamber was full, but it felt empty. The species who'd once sat with pride and confidence now looked diminished, uncertain. They watched Admiral Sarah Chun, the way prey watches a predator that's decided not to kill them yet. Sarah activated the holographic display. Images filled the chamber. Destroyed Korthax fleets, collapsed Velshara economic networks, disbanded trading clans. 6 months of systematic dismantling of galactic power. "This is what you created," Sarah said, her voice calm and clear. "For 10 years, my mother came here asking for help. For protection. For justice. You laughed at her. You called us weak. You told us that if we couldn't defend ourselves, we didn't deserve to exist." She let the images cycle through. Burning colonies. Dead civilians. Stolen ships. All human losses that the Council had ignored. "You were right about one thing," Sarah continued. "Species that can't defend themselves don't survive. So we stopped trying to be what you wanted us to be. We stopped pretending we'd left our past behind. We went home to what we've always been." Chairman Veltok raised a shaking hand. "Admiral, we acknowledge mistakes were made. But surely we can find a peaceful resolution. The Council is prepared to offer reparations, to guarantee protections under galactic law, to—" "No," Sarah said simply. "You don't understand. We're not here to negotiate. We're here to tell you how things are going to work now." General Thrak, present as a prisoner but allowed to attend, laughed bitterly. "You're dictating terms to the entire galaxy." That's tyranny, is it? Sarah asked. You built empires on the backs of weaker species. You exploited, enslaved, and murdered anyone who couldn't stop you. You called it strength. We're just doing the same thing, but we're honest about it. We're not pretending to be civilized while we crush the weak. She pulled up a new image, the symbol of the Terran Coalition, a blue planet surrounded by protective hands. Humanity is establishing the Terran Coalition. Membership is simple. Species that maintain peace will be protected. Species that threaten others will be eliminated. There's no negotiation, no compromise, no exceptions. You can't enforce peace through threats, Scholar Rixta said quietly. Peace built on fear isn't real peace. You're right, Sarah agreed. But you know what's worse than peace built on fear? The chaos you allowed. The strong preying on the weak while you watched and did nothing. At least our system is honest. At least everyone knows where they stand. She walked to the center of the chamber, turning slowly to look at each delegation. Here are the terms. The Korthax Empire will be restricted to their home system for 3 generations. You'll be allowed to govern yourselves, but humans will monitor everything. No military expansion. No raids. No conquest. Break these rules, and we'll remove your ability to travel between stars. Thrax started to protest, but Sarah's look silenced him. She continued, the Velshara Collective will be dismantled. Your member species are free to form new governments however they choose. Your bureaucratic class will be investigated for corruption. Those found guilty will face trial. Human observers will ensure your new systems are fair and accountable. The trading clans no longer exist. Your assets have been redistributed to the species you exploited. Any former clan members found guilty of piracy or extortion will be prosecuted. Veltok stood, his voice desperate. Admiral, please. You're destroying the order that's maintained galactic civilization for millennia. That order was built on exploitation, Sarah said. It maintained peace for the powerful while sacrificing the weak. We're not destroying civilization. We're fixing it. By becoming the very thing you fought against? Rixta asked. By using force to impose your will? Sarah was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer but no less firm. My mother spent 30 years as a diplomat. She believed in negotiation, in finding common ground, in peaceful resolution. She raised me to believe in those things too. When she came home from that final council meeting, she cried for hours. Not because you'd rejected her, but because she realized what she'd have to unleash. Sarah pulled up an image of Director Chun, standing in this same chamber 10 years ago, young and hopeful. She knew what humanity was capable of. She'd studied our history, seen what we'd done to ourselves, understood the cost of war. She spent her entire career trying to save you from us, and you threw it away. The chamber was silent. Sarah continued, we didn't want this. We wanted to be better. We wanted to prove that a species could change, could leave violence behind and build something good. But you wouldn't let us. So now we're doing what we should have done from the start. We're protecting the weak because no one else will. This isn't protection, Thrak growled. This is occupation. Call it whatever you want, Sarah said. The results are the same. Small species won't be raided anymore. Trade routes will be safe. Colonies won't be destroyed for profit. That's more than your council ever accomplished. She brought up the final part of her presentation, humanity's plan for education. Every member world will have human academies. Your young will learn Earth's history. Not the peaceful period, but all of it. The wars, the genocides, the nuclear weapons, the near extinctions. They'll understand what humanity overcame to become what we were. They'll see what happens when species choose violence over cooperation. You want to indoctrinate our children? Veltok asked, horrified. We want to teach them, Sarah corrected. We want them to understand that peace isn't natural. It's not easy. It's something you have to choose every day, even when violence seems easier. We learned that lesson over thousands of years and billions of deaths. Maybe your species can learn it faster. Rexta spoke again, her voice thoughtful. And if we refuse? If we reject your coalition? Then you're on your own, Sarah said. We won't protect you, but we won't attack you either. Unless you threaten others. Then we'll treat you like any other threat. That's still tyranny, Thrak insisted. Maybe, Sarah agreed. But it's tyranny that keeps you alive. My mother offered you partnership. You rejected it. So now you get this instead. Not because we want power, but because someone has to stop the monsters. And since we used to be monsters ourselves, we know all their tricks. The vote was called. One by one, species accepted membership in the Terran Coalition. Some did it eagerly, grateful for protection they'd never had. Others did it reluctantly, knowing they had no real choice. But they all did it, because the alternative was worse. When the session ended, Sarah left the chamber. She didn't feel victorious. She felt tired and sad, and angry at a galaxy that had forced humanity to become what they'd tried so hard to leave behind. She returned to Earth and went to the memorial garden where 12,000 names were carved in stone. Each name represented someone killed at Kepler Station. She found her grandmother's name, Director Sarah Chun. Her mother had named her after the grandmother she'd never met. Sarah placed her hand on the stone and whispered, "We stopped asking, Grandmother, just like you told us to. I hope you'd be proud. I hope you'd understand." Above her, ships left Earth carrying humanity's new mission. Not to explore or to seek out new life, but to ensure that life everywhere had the chance to flourish without fear. It wasn't the future humanity had dreamed of, but it was the future the galaxy had chosen when it rejected humanity's better nature. The galaxy had peace now. Not the peace of cooperation and mutual respect, but the peace of overwhelming force ensuring compliance. It wasn't what humanity wanted, but it was what worked. And humanity, having been forced back into their oldest role as predators and protectors, would carry that burden for as long as necessary. Not as conquerors seeking glory, but as survivors who remembered what happened when no one stopped the monsters, because they'd been monsters once. They'd clawed their way out of that darkness through blood and tears and billions of deaths. They built something better, something peaceful, something worth protecting. The galaxy had taken one look at that achievement and destroyed it. So now humanity would ensure no one else could make the same mistake. They'd be the guardians, the enforcers, the ones who remembered that peace wasn't free. They'd stop asking for peace. The day the galaxy proved it would never be freely given. Now they'd enforce it, one world at a time, until every species understood what humanity had learned in their darkest hours. Peace wasn't maintained by those who desired it. Peace was maintained by those who remembered what came when it failed, and who refused to let that happen again, no matter the cost to their souls.